Hello there, it's Tuesday, the 30th day of June. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. A special welcome to our viewers at home and abroad and anyone joining us for the first time. We have an informative show lined up just for you today, highlighting some of the initiatives and developments taking place right here at home. Stay with us. Jamaica Magazine continues after this break.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, June 30, 2026. The government has made no plans for the housing of third country nationals, TCNs, in St. Mary. That's the word from Minister of National Security and Peace, Dr. Horace Chang, as he dismisses claims being made in the media. Speaking with JIS News, Dr. Chang says there will be no transfers until the required operational procedures are finalized. The National Security Minister says the government is awaiting a review from the International Organization for Migration, which has responsibility for housing arrangements for third country nationals.
The activities now depend on the technical professionals we have, and we have a good team of them between the Ministry of National Security and Peace, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the International Organization for Migration, which will look at the conditions we have and if everything is ready to receive them. The public will be made aware of that.
In the meantime, Dr. Chang is urging responsible reporting, as misleading information are putting both the community and the property being mentioned in media reports at risk. He says the police have been asked to pay close attention to the area as a reassurance to the citizens and to ask individuals to maintain peace and order.
I'm very concerned because the reports have in fact raised the ire of the population in Grand Spen, St. Mary, and would like to ask them to remain calm, not to do anything rash because there is no truth to the reports. I'm sure this matter will not stop, but we ask that efforts be made to prevent any assault on the property in St. Mary, because this is, as I said, a long-serving, successful Jamaican professional who has put her retirement package in that property, and in fairness is reinvesting in her own country and want to live in peace and quiet. And her activity brings benefit to the community. Please refrain from putting her property and her staff at risk.
The Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information has condemned the reported treatment of some grade 6 students at Ascot Primary School in St. Catherine by administrators. This follows allegations that students who did not perform well in the 2026 Primary Exit Profile PEP examinations were excluded from wearing gowns at the school's graduation ceremony. Portfolio Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon has released a statement describing the reported actions as inappropriate and inconsistent with child welfare principles. Dr. Morris-Dixon stresses that every child deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of examination outcomes. She says the Education Ministry will not condone practices that undermine students' emotional well-being or violate their right to equitable treatment. Meanwhile, Acting Chief Education Officer Mrs. Terry-Ann Thomas-Gale says the ministry has since engaged the school's principal, Mark Johnson, who has expressed regret for the decision, which was not intended to publicly humiliate any student. The Education Ministry further notes that the education regulations of 1980 require school leaders to safeguard the welfare of students and conduct school affairs in a manner that promotes their best interests. Still on education, the ministry says it has appointed approximately 108 teachers to early childhood institutions and is recruiting more to fill remaining vacancies across the sector. State Minister Rhoda Moy Crawford says the government remains committed to ensuring every registered early childhood institution has access to trained teachers.
Approximately 30.8 billion, representing about 19.5% of the ministry's recurrent budget of 196.7 billion, has been dedicated to the early childhood sector, which caters to children from birth to 8 years old. This represents a foundational investment in Jamaica's human capital pipeline, not a marginal allocation.
According to Minister Crawford, approximately 81,000 children in infant schools and lower primary grades are now being taught by trained teachers. The students spread across approximately 500 infant schools and more than 766 primary schools. Another 24,000 children attending private early childhood institutions also have access to trained educators.
Our ministry continues to work with primary schools, infant departments, basic schools, and private early childhood institutions to improve quality and consistency. This includes support for trained teachers, maintenance, institutional strengthening, practitioner training, and caregiver stipend.
Minister Crawford affirms that the commitment also extends to the development of more infant departments attached to primary schools and the strengthening of brain builder centers. The Tourism Workers Pension Scheme now has a value of $5.3 billion in savings. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett gave the update during his recent contribution to the 2026-2027 sectoral debate. He says the growth of the fund and its positive performance will enable more hospitality workers to benefit from the scheme. So far, more than 10,000 workers have registered for the program.
These numbers represent more than financial growth. They represent greater security, dignity, confidence of the people whose labor sustain Jamaica's tourism industry.
Qualified pensioners who have met the 5-year vesting period will begin receiving benefits upon retirement at age 65 or older.
If you join at age 59 and you only have 5 years to contribute, you would get a pension the size of which you would have gotten if you had started at the first age 18.
The Tourism Workers Pension Scheme, which was initially funded by the government with $1 billion, is designed to provide coverage for permanent, contract, and self-employed workers in the tourism sector between the ages of 18 and 59. This coverage extends to hotel workers as well as individuals employed in related industries, including craft vendors, tour operators, red cap porters, contract carriage operators, and workers at attractions. The government continues to make medication more affordable and accessible to citizens as it increases subsidies under the National Health Fund, NHF. The latest increase by the NHF is on subsidies for 18 cardiovascular drug items. These adjustments provide immediate financial relief for patients who are prescribed critical cholesterol lowering and lipid regulating medications, as well as treatments for ischemic heart disease and hypertension. Since the start of this year, the fund has also added 11 new drug labels and increased subsidies for 207 hypertension drug items to cover roughly 50% of costs to patients. In March, heart failure was added to the NHF card program, making more than 250 medication items available under subsidy coverage. New diagnostic benefits were also introduced, including an annual $7,500 subsidy for echocardiograms and $1,750 for ECG tests. The NHF says the expanded support is aimed at improving access to treatment, early detection, and ongoing management of cardiovascular diseases across Jamaica. For more information on the NHF card program and a full list of covered conditions, visit www.nhf.org.jm or contact customer care at 876-906-1106. And finally, the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SERA, has launched a new electronic food handler's e-card and e-permit through the ID Pro identity management system. The introduction, which took effect on June 15, marks a strategic shift from traditional physical cards to digital e-cards. This means applicants across Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine and St. Thomas, whose permits have been approved by the Medical Officer of Health, will have immediate access to their electronic permits. SERA says the initiative provides applicants with faster and more convenient access to their permits through a fully digital process, eliminating the need to visit health departments to collect printed food handlers' permit cards. This system is the first of its kind to be implemented across the regional health authorities and is projected to result in an estimated $16.8 million in savings. The system was designed by SERA's ICT department based on a recommendation from the Internal Audit Department. Applicants will be able to view their food handler's e-card or e-permit, download a PDF copy, and save the permit to their mobile device for future reference. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
In a moment, everything can change. A loved one doesn't come home. A call goes unanswered, and suddenly you're searching for answers. If someone you know is missing in Jamaica, don't wait. Call 119 immediately or visit the nearest police station to file a report. Provide as much detail as possible: their full name, recent photos, the clothes they were wearing when last seen, last known location, and any contacts or habits that may help. You may also utilize social media to locate the missing person, but this must be done responsibly by sticking to the verified information provided by the police. When we work together and act quickly, we increase the chance of a missing person's safe return. Act now. Every second counts.
Let's now head over to Jamaica House for a weekly roundup of the key events and developments on the Prime Minister's agenda over the past few days.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness was overseas last week on official duties, attending the 6th edition of the Suriname Energy, Oil and Gas Summit and Exhibition. The visit led to Jamaica and Suriname initiating bilateral talks for the exchange of knowledge in oil and gas exploration. Conversation was held on Wednesday by Prime Minister Holness and Suriname's President Jennifer Simons. This was followed by a press briefing where Dr. Holness highlighted that Jamaica was seeking to tap into Suriname's 40-year experience of oil exploration, discovery and delivery.
You know the experience. You have been developing your gas and oil fields for over 40 years. So from the point of discovering potential to discovering that there are commercial quantities to be able to exploit those, it's a long time. And we are interested in learning from your journey to shorten ours. So a part of our bilateral discussion was to cooperate on the exchange of learning, exchange of knowledge and information.
Dr. Holness informed that Jamaica was taking charge of its own energy future, which includes oil exploration offshore. Early-stage seabed work was completed earlier this year.
So far, the results have shown that there is the possibility of an active petroleum system offshore in some of the areas of exploration. We have not confirmed anything yet. There is no confirmation of any commercial quantities, but it is promising.
Jamaica and Suriname also discussed bilateral partnerships in tourism, agricultural trade and investment, and the movement of skilled labor, among other things. In November this year, both countries will celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations.
It's a relationship with great potential, but we just have not invested the time and effort to explore it. Now we are exploring the possibilities, and there are many possibilities. And we are both committed to set the framework within which we can intensify cooperation.
Meanwhile, addressing the Energy, Oil and Gas Summit, Prime Minister Holness reiterated the call for a renewed focus on sustainable energy security in the region. The call is prompted by the recent Middle East conflict and its resulting impact on global oil and food prices. Dr. Holness said with oil-producing nations such as Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago in the region, greater cooperation would help to shield Caribbean countries from volatile international energy markets.
This region holds world-class resources that opens an opportunity we have never had before. Energy security supplied within our own family. Producers supplying reliable oil and gas at fair and predictable prices. Islands given the runway to scale the renewables that suit them best. This is what economic integration was always meant to deliver. Now we have an opportunity to make energy the strongest thread binding our single market together.
Dr. Holness reasserted Jamaica's commitment to generating half of our electricity from renewable sources by 2030 as the government continues to diversify the country's energy base.
We have already awarded approximately 100 megawatts of new solar generation, and we have launched the largest renewable energy tender ever undertaken in the Caribbean. 300 megawatts of renewable generation paired with 150 megawatts of battery storage. Energy security for a small island like Jamaica is never about betting on one fuel or one supplier. It is about building many parts so that we keep the lights on, the economy moving, the cost of living within reach of our people, whatever the world may throw at us.
Prime Minister Holness continued his official overseas duties with a 2-day state visit to Guyana. On Thursday, Dr. Holness received a military guard of honor welcome with the playing of Jamaica's national anthem. Dr. Holness and a delegation was there for the Guyana-Jamaica Strategic Partnership Dialogue with a focus on advancing regional food security, prosperity, innovation, and security. Outcomes of the engagement include bilateral talks in areas such as technology, education, energy, government efficiency, agriculture, and housing. This was concluded with the signing of 4 memoranda of understanding for economic, technical, and cultural cooperation, agriculture, defense and security, and financial services. Prime Minister Holness said the MOUs represent a few of the areas of cooperation being pursued.
The breadth of our exchanges and the potential of our collaboration and cooperation is extensive. We've discussed energy, as you have seen, security, tourism, financial services, agriculture, housing, all kinds of things we have discussed, including regional and diplomatic issues.
While in Guyana, Dr. Holness participated in the opening ceremony of the International Building Expo and visited the country's energy plant. He also held further diaspora town hall engagement on Jamaica's path to a more secure, socially just, energy efficient, and productive society.
If you put all of that together, that's a different Jamaica than the Jamaica that existed 10 years ago, and we are on that path.
He also visited the Georgetown Public Hospital for a demonstration of the Freedom 60 robot that can perform cardiac surgery. And finally, Prime Minister Holness expressed condolences on the passing of former government minister, senator, and member of the Jamaica Labour Party, Professor the Honorable Oswald Harding. He died on June 24 at the age of 90. Dr. Holness described Mr. Harding as one of Jamaica's most distinguished legal minds, parliamentarian, politician, academic, and public servant. Mr. Harding served as President of the Senate from 1980 to 1984 and from 2007 to 2011. He was appointed Minister of Justice in 1986 and Attorney General in the same year. Affectionately called Ozzy, Prime Minister Holness says he devoted decades of his life to strengthening the institutions of our democracy. Dr. Holness extends condolences on behalf of the government and people of Jamaica to his family, colleagues, former parliamentary colleagues, and the many Jamaicans whose lives were touched by his remarkable service. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
That's not true. I urge the media to give as much prominence to the rejection as they gave to the original story, because it is putting at risk the retirement property of a very outstanding public servant. That has not changed. I'd await the review by the International Organization for Migration. I'm very concerned because said the reports have in fact raised the ire of the population in Grand Spence St. Mary, and would like to ask them to remain calm, not to do anything rash, because there is no truth to the reports. And this is the property which was built by a retired Jamaican public servant. She's worried about her own safety, of her staff, and the safety of the property, and the safety of any visitors there. In fact, she's looking at canceling some bookings she has had, and that may lead to her actually having to take legal action, as she's losing, not only have emotional stress by virtue of the report and the pressure from the community, but she has to close her business. I've asked police to give extra ear, in terms, so to speak, in the area. She has not called the police, but I had a discussion with her this morning after I got her contact, and I've asked the police to pay close attention to what's happening in there and to give some reassurance to the citizens that this is not happening, and also ask them to maintain good order and peace. And if they have a report, the police is willing to receive it. To Grand Spence St. Mary, please keep calm. No third country person is out there. As I said, the activities now depend on the technical professionals we have, and we have a good team of them between the Ministry of National Security and Peace, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the International Organization for Migration, which will look at the conditions we have and if everything is ready to receive them. The public will be made aware of that. Not now. I'm sure this matter will not stop, but we ask that efforts be made to prevent any assault on the property in St. Mary, because this is, as I said, a long-serving, successful Jamaican professional who has put her retirement package in that property, and in fairness is reinvesting in her own country and want to live in peace and quiet. And her activity brings benefit to the community. Please refrain from putting her property and her staff at risk.
Bushfires can leave a trail of destruction long after the flames are extinguished. Beyond the immediate damage, they affect our forests, water sources, and ecosystems. This feature takes a closer look at the impact of bushfires and why preventing them is everyone's responsibility.
Unplanned fires that burn in natural areas such as forests, grasslands, and savannas are called bushfires. They are usually caused by human activities done in error. In Jamaica, individuals burning garbage or clearing fields, farmers burning land for replanting, and individuals throwing away lit cigarettes are all actions that can cause bushfires. Natural occurrences such as lightning can also cause bushfires. This happens when lightning strikes and ignites dry trees and bushes. Bushfires can have deleterious or harmful effects on the natural environment. Managing Director of the Water Resources Authority, Peter Clark, wants citizens to pay keen attention to habits that can cause bushfires and be more proactive. One of the effects of bushfires is soil erosion. When burnt material from fires infiltrate the soil and form a waxy layer, this makes it difficult for water to infiltrate the ground during rainfall. Similarly, when the roots of plants burn, they can no longer hold soil particles in place. Bushfires also cause harm to the country's watersheds and have a negative impact on water resources. This continues the vicious cycle of water shortage.
So that when we are gathering water, we then have to probably not take that initial water into reservoirs because the sediment level is so high. This is created by the conditions that the bushfires would have set up. And so it leads to increased treatment costs. It leads to diversion of water that could have been collected for time, as we are now in need of water. That could have been collected, but it has to be diverted because the erosion and the sediment is so high.
Bushfires also cause the depletion of stored water in facilities like the Mona Reservoir when the precious liquid is used for dampening blazes.
The Jamaica Fire Brigade had to call on the Jamaica Defense Force, who had to use its helicopter and to pull gallons of water, dipping bucket into the Mona Reservoir to hold bushfire. Now that I understand is almost 1,000 buckets of water was removed from the Mona Reservoir to put out bushfire.
A December 2022 report from the Meteorological Service of Jamaica showed that all parishes were experiencing rainfall levels below their respective 30-year averages. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded a mere 5% of their average rainfall. Since the start of this year, the country has been experiencing a meteorological drought.
The fact that it is a meteorological drought means that right now, the rivers that are served largely by almost instantaneous rainfall, the rivers that are emanating and being sourced from areas that are of the volcanic rocks are being impacted.
Mr. Clark says rivers in the Blue Mountains and the Wandibolas Mountain are being affected. This has resulted in certain water sources being impacted. And that's why an increase in bushfires is worrying for the Water Resources Authority.
There must be concern when water that has been abstracted and gathered for domestic purposes is being used to out bushfires. We have a very serious and strong concern about that.
To minimize the risks and ensure that precious resources are used for their intended purpose, it is important that citizens do not carelessly light and leave fires unattended.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. In the meantime, visit our website at jis.gov.jm for more news you can use. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay safe.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.